And I say both of you clearly have good genes. And here's what I mean by this. Ike, I see what you're doing with your son, Ivan. He's working really hard. He's got scholarships all over the country to play football and to create his own path. And I see what your son has done too as a broadcaster in his own right and forging his own trail. This last Saturday, the Notre Dame football game in Dublin, I thought he did a tremendous job. So from afar, I can see both of you, what you've done in your respective careers, but also what you've done as parents in your kids blazing their own trails. It's something that is very, very inspiring for me and a lot of people out there.
Hey, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Ike would probably share my philosophy with this. It's the biggest compliment if your child is interested in what you do. Forget about if they pursue it. If they're just interested, if they ask questions, if they're curious, and then that next step is when they actually want to try and do it on their own. And the insight that I can bring from a football standpoint, that I can bring from a broadcast standpoint, of course, it gives your offspring a bit of an edge because they've seen it, they've lived it. It's a day-to-day part of their existence. And for my son, he saw years and years of my preparation and what it takes to really commit yourself to this. And I think that's the biggest key, that this is not a snap your fingers and it happens kind of situation. It requires all the work that it requires for anybody else, but then it may require a little bit extra because people have a microscope on you and you're going to have to prove them wrong in a way, because the initial perception is, oh yeah, well, that's Ike Taylor's son. Of course he's supposed to be good. No, that's not how it works in life.
No, I totally agree. And Mark, hopefully you working on yours, Mark, coming soon, coming to a theater near you. You working on your first kid, hopefully. But at the same time, Ayan, I agree with you 100%. I was talking to one of my homegirls and she was like, I can pretty much do everything at work. And I said, that's the problem. You got to master one thing. And once you master one thing, then all the doors and the avenues open up for you. But I say, man, it's a lonely road. I say, man, you can only drive one car. And driving that one car and not having enough money to get other cars, man, that car gonna go through something. You have to change tires. You might got to change the oil. Like, this is just life in general. So, and when our sons get to see the process,
Yep.
the good times, the bad times, the putting in work, the getting up early, the staying out late. So I agree with you. It's just an honor for me and my son to be playing. My son has given me an experience I've never had. Like, I've never been to Power 5 schools, had visits. I was a walk-on. So for us to damn near go through 15, 17 different schools, and he's just a junior, I'm more excited than him, so, and for your son to be broadcasting, which is one of the schools my son, top 5 schools, my son really likes, and that's Notre Dame. So for him to be up there in Ireland, broadcasting, getting time on his own to travel, becoming his own self, says a lot about you, Ayan. So, he watched your preparation. He watched what you had to go through, and this is over years. This is years. Where you're at right now is not an overnight deal. Where I'm at right now is not an overnight deal. And the first time I got on with Mark, I told Mark, I said, Mark, Rome wasn't built in a day, bro. I said it's gonna take a while, and it's gonna be frustrating. We're gonna see other people, but I'm telling you, if we just keep doing what we're doing, it's gonna be some bright lights at the end of the tunnel.
That's well said. What I wanted to ask too, I could ask you what advice you could give to your son or another broadcaster, but I want to flip the script here. What advice would you tell him to ignore?
Well, probably the biggest one is currently in our world that we live in. Everybody is very accessible because of social media. And if you're broadcasting a game, if you want to look down at your phone during the game, there's going to be a lot of messages to you, positive, negative, some preposterous, some helpful, constructive criticism. You've got to really be smart and prudent in locking in and having total concentration for what it is that you're doing at the time. So if I'm doing an NFL game, I know for 3 hours, that's the most important thing going on in my life. And there are things happening in your life. And I'm sure I could speak to this during his playing days. Just because it's the biggest game of the year doesn't mean that life stops outside of that game. You still have family and friends and ups and downs and trials and tribulations. But for the 3 hours, you got to be locked in. So probably the one that I would pass along to Noah, and we've had discussions about it, is, hey, you got to block out the noise. And for the time that you have committed to your partner, to your broadcast team, producer, director, AD, BA, stat person, spotter, camera person, audio person, the whole 9 yards, videotape, you're a team. So if you're not at your best, you're letting down your teammates.